Hello everyone. I know that this video will trigger many people, but still, let's talk about the number one problem of Elden Ring. Not sure if any of you realize that, but almost all Elden Ring's problems are the result of one very obvious thing, which almost everyone either ignores or praises for some reason. This problem's name is open world. Okay, let's count all Elden Ring's problems. First and most obviously, infinity boss reuses. I know that many people justify this with the dumbest arguments such as but they are fun or but they are optional. Therefore it somehow justifies reuses. If you use as an argument that they are optional, know the fact that you already lost the debate. Why? Well, because in, for example, Dark Souls 2, every single boss before Drangleic Castle is an optional boss. Yes, even Giant Lord is an optional boss. But I don't see anyone defending bosses such as Pursuer, Dragon Rider, Chariot, Flexing Sentry, Ruin Sentinels, Rats, and others will, but they are optional, which, you know, is the right thing. But as a reminder, in main game of Elden Ring, from 238 bosses, there are only 10 unique bosses. The main reason why in this game there are so many reuses is because game devs wanted to fill this huge open world with something, like at least with something. And that's why in this game, for absolutely no reason, you can find the same bosses over and 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 over. And okay, if they reused only non-remembrance bosses, this would also be extremely lazy and a deep shit move. But as a reminder, from 15 remembrance bosses, you can fight half of them anytime you want. You can find another Mog, another Godfrey, another Malekith, another Godric, another Lich Dragon, and a few others. And this is not cool at all. And while they made a huge open world, may I ask, just to repeat the same punching bag bosses? If yes, then bravo, what can I say? Now let's talk about open world itself and what type of content is in this game itself. I know that many people say that Elden Ring's open world is anti-Ubisoft design, but if someone says that, know the fact that they didn't even play this game. Why I say that? Well, because the only difference between, for example, Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Elden Ring's open world is that one has symbols everywhere and the map clearly shows you it's mostly garbage content, while other one hides it's mostly garbage content. I am not joking, that's the only difference. Okay, let's talk about Elden Ring's content in main game. Nearly identical soldier camps, nearly identical dungeons, in which you will always fight F tier boss, which are either basic mobs with HP bar, or duo basic mobs with HP bar, or another red phantom with HP bar, or for some reason phase 1 of remembrance boss. You might say, what about locations such as Leyndell, Godric's Castle, Farum Azula, or Academia of Real Lucaria? Yeah, welcome to Legacy Dungeons. That are the only interesting parts of this game. No, really, let's talk about locations that aren't Legacy Dungeons. Let's take, for example, Mountain Top of the Giants, Limgrave, and Kaelid. In my subjective opinion, of course, each of these locations is absolutely piece of shit, which the whole purpose is to waste your time. In this location, there is just nothing interesting to explore. Sorry, but I can't call Limgrave, in which you spend 90% of the time on a horse while clearing the same outposts, I want to say the same dungeons and the soldier camps over and over and over and over, somewhat interesting content. In this game there are so many boring swamp arenas or just huge and empty arenas in which there is just nothing to do, which by the way you are just running through with the help of your horse. This game would lose absolutely nothing if Limgrave, Mountain Top of the Giants, and Kaelid was cut by 80%. This game would lose nothing valuable if you remove these boring swamp arenas. If you take only legacy dungeons in this game would be as big as Dark Souls 3 or a bit bigger. And if this game was a bit bigger than Dark Souls 3, you would fight many unique bosses and you won't spend so much time on a horse while clearing the same boring dungeons over and 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 over. The situation in this DLC is somehow actually worse. If in the main game you at least had a motivation to explore this boring open world simply because you need to level up and to find good weapons or amulets that are hidden in these stupid dungeons in DLC of Elden Ring, not only locations are somehow even more huge and even more empty, your only motivation to explore this DLC is to find Shadow 3 fragments. You absolutely need to find these 3 fragments in order to even fight the bosses properly. In this DLC, there are only 3.5 interesting locations: Mesmer's Castle, Dancing Lion's Castle, Leroy Turadan, and Relana's Castle, which is just stupidly short. That's the only interesting locations in this DLC. Other locations are huge, yes, and even if you look on the map, you can see that yes, they are very big, but also game devs forgot to add interesting content in it. Not sure if you realize that, but if you simply look at the size of the map, for example, Jagged Peak is bigger than Lanedale, and this is not a joke, but be honest with me and tell me which one is more interesting to explore. Also, for example, location with blue flowers, absolutely fantastic location visually, it's so beautiful, but at the same time it's so empty and boring. There is nothing interesting to do there, just another death bird, another death dragon, another demi-human queen, which you killed at least 5 times each in the main game. And the other thing you do in this location is simply you playing a horse riding simulation while you are searching for these stupid 3 fragments, which were added only because they want to somehow motivate players to explore this dead empty open world. I have a full video about Elden Ring's DLC maps real content, and if you are bored to watch it, just know the fact that 70% of this map is just empty with only one purpose: just to waste your time. No, really, just remove 70% of this DLC. Make this DLC a bit bigger than Ringed City, but will 11 bosses and let it be. 10 hours of concentrated content without this boring horse riding simulation, and without you searching for these brain dead 3 fragments which were added in this DLC only to motivate player to explore these locations in which there is just nothing to do. In this game DLC, there are no interesting quests like in Witcher 3 or in Elden 2. There are no memorable side quests such as Leonardo's missions or the story of the Furious Love from Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, which could motivate you to explore this open world. Side quests of this game is extremely repetitive, and the only reason why it's not boring is because of Dark Souls 3 combat system, which makes fighting bosses much more entertaining than clearing the same outpost in Valhalla while pressing 2 buttons. But it's Dark Souls 3 combat system's achievement and not Elden Ring's achievement. Side quests and open world of Elden Ring outside of legacy dungeons and remembrance boss fights is extremely repetitive and boring, and that's just a fact which you just can't deny. Now let's talk about weapons balance and about boss fights. First of all, about the boss fights, I am 100% sure that any of you had a moment in which you met Remembrance boss or someone else and they just absolutely demolished you. You went on the other side of the map, and when you came back, you accidentally two-shotted the boss. The best example of this are Relana and Radan. I am 100% sure that any of you had a moment in which you just ran down either of these bosses simply because you were way too overlevel for them. In Elden Ring, because of open world, it's just impossible to balance your encounters with bosses. You always are either way too OP or way too weak. There is no golden middle. And because of that, most boss fights in Elden Ring are just boring. And whose fault is this? Yep, open world's fault. Now about weapons balance. I am pretty sure that any of you heard that bleed is the most effective way to kill bosses. And people don't sell it because by a Christmas magic, they all are unskilled players. These people just say a fact. Not sure if you paid attention to it, but as far as I saw, you do as much damage as in Dark Souls 3. But the only difference is that in Elden Ring, you can level up much faster because it's an open world game, and in order to prevent you one-shotting bosses, game devs just gave bosses and mobs a shitload of health and damage. The best example of this in main game is Mountain Top of the Giants. As soon as you reach Mountain Top of the Giants, any balance in this game just disappears. The situation with DLC is even worse. I won't talk much, just let me show you what a regular basic mob did to a dude in full Leyndell armor, with more than 2k health and with Dragon Chest Amulet that gives you 20% physical damage reduction.
It is the gypsy girl, the witch who sent this flame.
Yeah, big thanks open world. You are such an amazing thing. In this game, at least in late game, and especially in this DLC, there is no reason for you to take a regular sword and do 400 damage per hit, while you can take either two heaviest bonkers and just spam bosses with jump hits, and after every third hit just repulse them, or just take a bleed weapons and wipe the floor with bosses, because each bleed proc does percent max health damage, and unless boss has bleed immune, they are fucked. Again, all Elden Ring's problems could be avoided if this game wasn't infected by a modern gaming disease named open world. After the success of Witcher 3 and Elden 2, every single game dev decided to create open world game, and they even added open world in games which just don't need them or are super harmful to them. There are so many good games or okay games that were destroyed because of this stupid open world disease, and Elden Ring is not an exception. This game could be so much better if this game was a half open world game just like Dark Souls 1 or a linear game like Dark Souls 3, but no, let's make Far Cry Souls Edition and call it a day. Well, that's pretty much it. Type what you think about my video. With this, I'll say bye bye to you and I will see you next time.